Well, hello there, how you doing? Welcome back once again to Andymancam's garage, where today I'm going to be fitting this Aoocci BX Apple Carplay navigation device to this Aprilia Tuareg. Driving safety and enjoy funny. And what this device essentially allows you to do is to mirror the display on your phone, Android or Apple, onto this phone so you can use your navigation apps. As well as the mobile phone screen mirroring capabilities, this handy little gadget also has blind spot detection system, and with its own dedicated GPS module, means there's no more killing the battery of your phone. Now, the first task, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be mounting the thing onto the bike, and for that there's already mounted onto the back of the unit this ball that goes into this socket with a clamp on it, which you can use to mount onto the handlebars. There are various spaces in the box from 16mm up to the size of a handlebar. There's also this little bracket in there, which allows you to mount the unit onto a wing mirror stalk. I have an adventure bike, so I've got this handy little rail on the top here. The problem with that is the little spacers that come in the kit only go down to 16mm, and this bar is actually a 12mm diameter. I considered using some trimmed down cable ties to space it out, but then realized if I do that, the thing is sticking way too far forwards, and I really want it on the bar. So what I've done is remove the bracket off the back of the unit, remove the ball off of the bracket, and then taken this very nicely CNC'd piece of aluminium that I used to mount the Garmin onto the bike, lined that up on here, and then I drilled these 4 holes. They weren't there originally, so these 4 holes freshly drilled into this plate, so I can screw the base to the bar, and then screw the back plate from BX onto the base, and from the rear I can put the original bolts back in. And this whole setup then gives me an element of theft protection, because if somebody wants to steal this unit, they're first of all going to have to take the screen off, but furthermore the bolts that are holding it all together are actually the Torx type with the pin in the middle, which means you need a special tool with a hole in it, and that tool comes in the kit. And that is on and vibration damped. And this is how I'm going to connect the thing up to the bike. So first of all, there's this breakout cable that's in there. 2 metal collars screwed together for a nice secure waterproof connection. And to this connects power, GPS, controller, front camera and rear camera. And it's all going to end up behind this panel here. So there I can see inside the brains of the bike, and I can already tell it's going to be very busy in here once I get all of these cables, plus this massive bundle of joy that comes with the GPS module, which is going to be the first thing I'm going to deal with, because I'm going to stick that with a clear view to the sky here on the nose of the bike. That is now officially the cleanest part of the entire bike. So I'll take the backing off of the 3M sticky pad. In the installation manual, which is very brief, it says to push down with all of your strength. So there we go, that is fixed, and the cable is going to go in there, for which I'm going to need to free up more loop of this massive bundle of cable. That is really way too much cable for a bike. Check it out. I can't even reach the bike with my foot now that I'm at the full length of the cable. Then I take the connector that says GPS, screw that together, and I'm going to leave this out for now, and I'll deal with tucking the cables away once I've got everything connected. Next up is the first of the cameras. This is the front camera. Obviously there are 2 cameras in the kit, so you have to pay attention to which one is which, because the rear one has a lot more cables so it can get to the back of the bike. And I'm going to mount my camera right here. Perfect frontal location, and yeah, kind of out of sight. You could almost miss it. Taking off the 3M sticky pad, press down with all my strength. Arrow is upwards. You take the protective screen off. I'm going to make this cable disappear from the camera around this panel, up in there, and then around the headlight to get into the dash area. And then this little plastic plug down there. Another little plastic plug there, and they work. Take them in, they spread the splines apart, open them out again. Just get a flathead screwdriver in the gap, twist it, and it pops out. And then slide the panel out. And the pop was this plastic penis popping out of this rubbery vagina. So now it's looking dangerously like I'm going to have to remove this panel here behind the headlight to get access to put the cables in. So it's one of those situations you have to take this bit off to get that bit off, because as you can see here, this panel hooks around that panel. So I think I'm going to have to take the headlight off. Bear with me. Okay, so I've got the headache. The headache is a Freudian slip, quite true. I've got the headlight off, and I noticed 2 things. One, I was absolutely right. You can't take this panel off until you've undone this screw. You can't undo this screw until you take the headlight off the bike. Second thing is that there's a washer jumping around inside my headlight. Seeing as how this is probably a sealed unit,
There's nothing I can do about it but to leave it in there rattling around. Good old Italian workmanship, eh? Hey, we throw a few extra parts in there. It doesn't matter, it's good for the weight, the balance. But anyway, I can now see that my cable from the camera can go up here, along there, tuck it in behind this panel here, and then that brings me out into the right place for all the other wiring. Tuck that in there for tidiness' sake. So that's the headlight all put together and ready to go back on the bike, but I'm going to leave it off because I've got great access now to pull the other cables in and feed them to the back of the bike where the power is. Because still to come, we have power that needs to go back to the battery. We've got the radar, which needs to go at the back of the bike. We've got the camera that needs to go at the back of the bike. We've also got this little remote control thingy, which goes on the handlebars. All of the wiring for this bike comes to the front here and then goes through this panel where it pops out into the front of the tower. So I think we're going to have to take this off in order to get access. So there's 2 bigger screws on this side. 4 smaller screws on this side. It's all being held together now by this screw here at the top. And that's this half of the tower separated. And everything is very neatly contained in there, cable tied onto the side of the panel, which is good. I'm glad that it wasn't just going to end up with a great big spaghetti of cables exploding out of me that I'd never get back in place again. And very important, this grommet just fell out. This is actually what holds the headlight in. It's trapped here in between the 2 halves of the tower, so that needs to be there when we go back together, otherwise the headlight won't stay still. For the next step, I'm gonna put the little controller here on the handlebars. I've already moved the clutch lever over a bit to make enough room for it. There you go. There is incidentally another little clip thing that you can use to mount this controller onto the stalk of your mirrors if you've got no space on your bars. But I think on the bars it's going to look much tidier. Even though I can already see that with the clamp down as tight as it'll go, it's too big for the bar. So it's going to be a bit floppy, less than ideal. I'm just going to have to pack something in there to keep that tight. There we go. It's nice and solid now. I actually used some of the extra spacer things that are meant for the clamp I didn't use. But that now gives me thumb access to several of the controls without having to reach forward to the display, which is now dangling weirdly on its strange disembodied stalk. Now the cable has to find its way over here to the front of the bike. First of all, my favorite, hijack the cable holders that are already there. It's a nice little rubber strap, that, with Aprilia written on it. No nasty cable tie action here. Well done, chaps. Same here, through here, through there. Where does it stop? I don't care. Around here, under there, and bosh, I've reached the front of the bike, and I've lost my grommet again. But remarkably, it's landed over there by the headlight. It's almost like they wanted to be together. How cute. Okay, so I can just leave that cable hanging for now, and we'll deal with the connections when everything's back together. Because the next step is going to take us to the back of the bike as we start to deal with camera and radar sensor. So here at the back of the bike, this is where things are going to get a little bit tricky because the Aprilia doesn't have much of a back. In fact, if I didn't have this rack on, pretty much wouldn't have any back at all. And I'd have to stick everything straight onto the headlight there. The headlight? The rear light. The rear head. Heading up the rear. I've got 1 radar sensor and 1 camera, and they both need to go at this back end. Pretty much the only choice I've got is to stick the radar sensor in the middle and then have the camera slightly off to the side. Otherwise, nothing's going to fit. And first, the radar, as central as I can get it. Push down with all my strength. The camera, pushing down with all my strength. Rotate that roughly into place. So now I can free the cables, send them in a forwardly direction. And so those 2 cables I've secured onto the rack with a cable tie. I've run them underneath the cable for the seat catch, and then I've cable tied them onto the grab rail, out of reach of where my fingers can get to this cable tie, because these things are sharp. If you know, you know. Then the cable from the radar ends here, because ground needs to be attached to the battery terminal negative or to a part of the frame, and ACC needs to be connected to a switched live, whereas the rear camera cable needs to find its way all the way through the bike and up to the front to be connected to the main head unit. Right then, welcome back. Here's what I've done. The radar cable is still there. Camera cable has come along here. It's gone across the front of the battery. It's come down through this side area, cable tied here. The main cable loom goes here into some channel that I can't get to without taking off the tank and everything. So I've just come around this bit, underneath this plastic panel there, up here, behind this panel, And then the power box, which is a bit stupid, the power box is in the middle of the cable. Instead of being at one end or at the other end, it's dead set in the middle, so you have to find somewhere to put it in the middle of the cable run, which is quite annoying. Do better in the future, AOC. But anyway, thankfully for me, there's a little shelf just inside this panel here that box is sitting on, and then the cable pops out here. And as you may have guessed, I've also run the power cable at the same time, because why run everything twice? So now I can take these cables and run them into this mess. So now I can connect all of this nonsense back together. Or not. Forgot the grommet. Plus, there's a cable hanging out of it. That would have been very frustrating. Right, try again. No captive cables and a headlight grommet in the right place. Okay, so that's all the small screws done up. 2 bigger screws. And then the final one at the top. And that's the tower all back together. So with all of the cabling here now at the front, I can put the dash backing panel back in, reconnect the dash, reseat the dash. That screws back into place with 3 Phillips head screws. These little cables hook in there. Bigger cable plugs in there. This much bigger cable plugs in there. And now we connect up some of my connectees. So what we've got here, a controller. As well as having the writing on the cables, they're also color-coded, so can't possibly get it wrong. Rear channel 1, power. That then leaves us with GPS and front channel 1, which is still on the headlight, which is over there. So that's the headlight reconnected, which now means back to the front, connect the remaining cable. Front channel 1. And last but by no means least, GPS. All the cables are now fitted together, so I just need to put them in there. And just to make your nightmares even worse, I didn't even do it tidy, I just chucked them all in there, willy and indeed nilly. Anyway, we can come back to the back end and sort out some power for this little device. All I need to do now is give this thing some juice. The first part of that is nice and easy. The black cable to the negative terminal on the battery, the red cable to the positive terminal. Almost forgot. That cable from the radar sender also needs to be connected to the battery terminal. This one, the ACC from the power supply loom, and this one, the ACC from the radar sender, both need to find a switched feed. So in order to get that switched feed, what I'm going to do is hijack the tail light. And at the moment, I don't actually have anything with which I can hijack the circuitry. So I'm going to use the ghetto version of hijacking a switched feed and just piggyback onto the fuse for the tail light there. And I will come back to that at a later date. I know a lot of you are screaming and shouting at the screen, Andy, what happened to your Thunderbox? Well, to be honest, I got rid of the Thunderbox because this bike's already got a switched USB socket at the front from which I powered my GPS, which meant everything came on when I needed to anyway. So this will do until I find a better solution. But in any case, that is now all wired up. So moment of truth time. Hopefully, when I turn this key, we should see some life. Look at that. I'll be honest, my heart was in my mouth for a second there because nothing was happening, but we have some action. Yeah, we'll go for English. It is the 3rd day, the 8th month, 13th hour with the 33rd minute and the 19th second. Correct. Well, there we go. The thing is on. So first of all, have we got feed from the cameras? Yeah, look at that. The rear camera and the front camera. And let's see if we can connect to the radar device. Click on that. Blind spot detection has been paired. So on the Bluetooth on my phone. Down there's the device. Pairing request. Then bosh, look at that. Come in here. I've got Waze, Spotify, WhatsApp, music. Yeah, so now the question is, maybe you can help me out. What are the best apps to use for navigation on a motorbike with an adventure slant that are CarPlay compatible? So that I can do destinations, waypoints, route planning, that kind of stuff. Brightness and volume, and there's an automatic brightness setting. We come back to home, and the only thing that's left now is tire pressure sensors. Because the final surprise of the day, this thing comes with tire pressure sensors, so I can see my tire pressure on the screen while I'm riding. All I have to do is come down to the tire sensors, are now broken. The sensors themselves are actually labeled front and rear, so I'll take the F. Normally I couldn't give an F. Today, you get an F. Come back to the device. Bind front wheel. There's the sensor there. Front tire pressure has been bound. Tire warning. Looks like I need to put some air in that. Then same for the rear. Bind rear wheel. It's popped up on the screen, click that, and it's been bound. In the back, I've got 29 PSI, 29 degrees. We come back to the home screen. Now I can see that on the screen, and the front is showing red because it's low. So if I walk away from the bike, excuse my noisy trainers, and then walk towards it, see, flashes up that I'm on the left-hand side, shows a picture of me on the camera. And the last thing to try out is the little remote control on the dashboard here. So short press should cycle through the various screens. We've got home screen, rear camera, front camera, tire pressure settings. We hold this down for 5 seconds. Turns the screen off completely. That's very good. If I don't want the distraction, click it once to turn it on again. If I press this quickly, still have to format the SD card. But yeah, if I press that quickly, that should take a snapshot. A 3-second long press will lock the video. Then the home button switches between CarPlay and the rear view camera. Right now you can see that the screen is responding to my touch. If I hold the home button down for 3 seconds, the screen is now locked, which means I can no longer touch it. Hold that down for 3 seconds again, and the screen is activated. Well, there we go. That is the Aoocci BX fitted to the Aprilia Tuareg. I'm looking forward to getting out and testing this out. I will be putting together a full review video, so watch out for that in the near future. In the meantime, thank you, Aoocci, very much for providing this unit for me to test. I'm very excited to see how it performs, and I'm looking forward to getting out on the road. Otherwise, keep yours shiny, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ra.